So there's a plan in the UK to bring in anti-misogyny classes for little boys to reduce the violence against women. Now, there's a lot of discourse about this online, people going back and forth. And today I'm going to give you both sides and then give you my opinion. Let's start with the feminists.
So the UK government just announced that boys in schools are going to be sent on courses to tackle misogyny, and before men start screaming in my comments, let's be very clear about why this is even happening in the first place. Teachers are being trained to spot misogyny in classrooms because it's already there, not theoretical, not future tense, already happening. We're talking boys repeating Andrew Tate talking points, normalising sexual harassment, degrading girls, joking about violence, and treating misogyny like banter instead of a warning sign. The government's goal here is to half violence against women and girls in the next decade, and that doesn't start in courtrooms, it starts in classrooms, because by the time these boys grow up, vote, date, work with women, or end up in police statistics, the damage is already done. And notice something interesting? Nobody is saying all boys, nobody is saying boys are evil. They're saying that intervention works better than pretending that this isn't happening, because if misogyny is being learned, then it can be unlearned, and if that makes you uncomfortable, maybe ask yourself why teaching boys basic respect feels like an attack, because girls have had to adapt to male violence forever, and this is the first time boys are being asked to adapt to.
Four blinks in that video. I'll be real with you. Halfway through the video, she didn't blink. I was wondering what the hell is going on. Anyways, the idea that men haven't had to adapt is just a flat out lie. It's just not. If you think men are the same today as they were 70 years ago, you're an idiot, okay? Because that's just factually incorrect. But anyways, this is this woman's perspective, and a lot of people's perspective. If you have a problem with little boys being taught basic respect, then it says something about you, because what is the downside to an anti-misogyny class? Surely we should want women to be safe.
Young men do not need misogyny awareness classes in school. And if the government in the UK are going to push this policy forward, why aren't they going to balance this out with teaching young women that they can't keep calling anyone who disagrees with them a misogynist? When are we going to make it clear to young women that being sexist towards men is sexism in the same way that men being sexist to women is sexism? Because the basis for this policy is that the modern left and the Labour Party genuinely believe that the average teenage boy hates women and is about to go out and kill his classmates, when the statistics and the data around incels show that this is utterly inaccurate. Or they'll claim that it's because of domestic abuse, which is exactly why they say nothing about the fact that lesbian couples have the highest rate of domestic violence out of any relationship group, that the LGBTQ plus community experience higher rates of domestic violence than heterosexual relationships. But obviously we couldn't dare point out this research because scientific data conducted objectively by researchers is far right and homophobic, especially if it disproves the argument of somebody who has no idea what they're talking about, regurgitates sound bites they've heard from social media, and feels at their core that that data is wrong. And it's this idiocy and refusal to accept the truth that is actually causing the stigmatisation of men directly through policy, such as this. That the current approaches to men's mental health care are ineffective and causing more men to die by suicide than is necessary. Why? Because the approach we're taking at the moment is a female-centric approach, but if anyone points that out, they're labelled as being anti-women, toxic masculine, or a misogynist. That nothing is being done about the fact that researchers have shown for over 30 years now that the current education system fails young men because their brains biologically develop later, and the current model of schooling is not suited to young men whose brains have not developed yet. Because obviously the fact that women used to be disadvantaged in education means that if we address that inequality men face, we have to reverse everything, and it means that women go back to the kitchen. And the bottom line of this is we have a duty as human beings to teach others not to be misogynists and not to be misandrists. We have a duty to teach others not to beat their partners, whether they're gay, straight or lesbian. But we also have a duty as human beings to stand up against ideologically driven, factually inaccurate, hate-fueled policies targeted at young men by the modern left and the out-of-touch liberals who know nothing about the real world outside their echo chamber. Teenage boys are not the problem, they are children. The problem is the modern left and left-wing governments' insistence on stigmatising them for the sake of them appearing virtuous to each other. Even when that means demonising and attacking young boys, children, blaming them and claiming that they are the reason that these problems exist in society, not their own failure to provide policies that have helped them, not their own failure to provide them with good role models, not their own failure to realise that the more they continue to attack and demonise them, the more they are going to hate you. And as a young man, remember this, it is your duty to not be a misogynist, to respect women and to understand that the masculine and feminine are equal. But it is also your duty to embrace your masculinity and reject this bullshit that the politicians and the education system are trying to push on you.
What you have here, in my opinion, is two people who, I'm not going to say they don't care about the actual problem or the actual topic in this case. I believe they do care, but they are driven by different things, right? So when you have the feminists speaking about, little boys, they are fueled by hate. They don't like men. I don't care what they say. We know what the feminists are. They do not like men. And that extends to little boys. And then you have the opposition, in this case, a right-wing guy who, he can't get through the video without bringing up the left and the right and the politics. If me and you were having this discussion, two people who genuinely want to have a discussion about protecting women, we can remove the hatred for men and we can remove the politics and we can have an actual conversation. Because even within all of this, I agree with certain things that both sides are saying. Do men have to be a problem in order to speak about women's safety? No, we're not saying that men are a problem. We're just saying maybe we want to make it a little bit safer for women. There should be no issue for that, because as a society, we should strive to get as close to world peace as humanly possible. Right? That should be the end goal. The end goal should be that we get so close to world peace that the only next step is world peace. Right? And a step in that direction would be to reduce the number of violence against women. Now, do I think these feminists overstate this and act like it's just this huge deal and all these little boys are just... Yes, they do. However, making it safer shouldn't be a problem. This is where I agree with what the right-wing guy is saying. The approach to this, we cannot allow feminists to get into a room with little boys and speak about misogyny, and we cannot allow it to happen, because they will demonize them. They will make out that their very essence, their masculinity, is an issue. These women, these feminists, because there are male feminists out there as well, get out that if you disagree with a woman, you're misogynist. If you call out the nonsense that women do, you're misogynist. They won't know how to do it properly. It needs to be someone or a group of people who are, firstly, have the boys' best interests at heart. Right? People say, oh, what about the women? They are boys. There are no victim in this scenario, right? They are children. They've done nothing. We're trying to mold them into good men. So we must have their best interests at heart first, right? So we have to teach them what it is to be a man, what it is to be masculine. Masculinity is good. Masculinity is showing this way. You respect women. You are, the leader. You should be the people who are protecting women, not harming them. You shouldn't be the danger. You should be the whatever the case is. You have to teach these boys that real masculinity, what a masculine man is, would never ever harm a woman. Never. And I always say this, especially when you're in a relationship. If a random woman hits you on the street, hey, defend yourself. I always say that. But you're in a relationship with a woman, you're dealing with a woman, she hits you, walk away. There's no excuse to hit a woman that you're dealing with. That's real masculinity, the ability to remove yourself from certain situations. All these things, in my opinion, need to be taught to boys. And there's nothing wrong with that. But feminists won't lay it out in that way. they won't.
Should we introduce anti-misogyny classes for 11-year-old boys in schools? It's something that they're doing in the UK.
I think it can be beneficial, but I would very much worry about it in the sense of two things. First of all, how it's done and what is being taught. Because to be perfectly blunt, if you have a female teacher at the top of a classroom waving her finger in a condescending way at boys saying, you're wrong for feeling this way, or you're guilty by association or something, that is going to push young men towards more misogynistic behaviours. I think you need to actually prop up men and give good male role models, because there is a healthy level of masculinity that young boys need.
Drop you guys' opinions in the comment section below, because I want to get you guys' thoughts. But one thing I want to tackle before I end the video is the word incel. This word has been thrown around so much that it's lost. They are throwing around incel for kids. Oh, these kids are incels. How can a 14-year-old be involuntarily celibate? Is a 14-year-old supposed to get pussy? What the hell is going on here? That makes no sense. When anything a man does that these feminists don't like, they're just throwing incel at it now.
People have completely forgotten the definition of an incel, which is someone who, by definition, unable to get women. It does not refer to any male who has a negative opinion about women. The thing is, what everyone believes incels are is the opposite of what incels are. Andrew Tate is arguably one of the most famous incels of all time, and he famously had too much sex. This is why I can't take y'all seriously when you get mad when a woman calls herself a femcel, because femcels can't really exist, harping about some definition of the word. You guys are already using it to describe any man that hates women, or any woman that hates men, or even just men or women that you don't like. You shouldn't be surprised that some people are going to try to reclaim your insult. That sort of thing happens a lot. Honestly, it's kind of comparable to the R word. Like, it's pretty insulting most of the time, but sometimes high-functioning neurodivergent people will sort of call themselves that as a joke. They will prefer you to call them that than coddle them. And there's debate over whether using it that way is okay, because it still negatively impacts those lower functioning on the spectrum. In the case of the term incel, the true cells. You see what I'm getting at here, right? Of course, the difference is that, like, society cares more about the mentally ill than incels, as they should, because, well, an incel can easily change their status from an incel to a sex haver. They just need to have sex once. But, like, a neurodivergent person can pretty much never become neurotypical. So it definitely makes sense to have more reservations with the R word. Personally, I avoid saying the hard T, but there are circumstances where I would call people regards, and I'll say that something is regarded, sometimes even highly regarded, by me.
For whatever reason, a lot of people don't care that words have meaning. It's something that I genuinely hate. You want to call Andrew Tate a misogynist? No problem. He's not an incel though. That's not what the word means. You just don't like him and you're trying to throw like as many insults as possible. But you can find actual insults. Stop calling 14-year-old boys incels. It doesn't make sense. He shouldn't be having sex at 16. So he cannot be an incel. He's celibate because he's a child.
This liquor got me in my zone. Now I'm blowing up your phone. Blowing weed, smoking the ozone. I just can't let this go. This liquor got me in my zone. Now I'm blowing up your phone. Blowing weed, smoking the ozone. I just can't